Now, as I said before, in the New Jersey plan, which is a small state plan, apparently forgot to write that on your notes. The small states, like New Jersey, didn't want to scrap the Articles of Confederation. The Articles of Confederation actually were very good for the small states. We'll talk about that just in a second. But the small states actually benefit from the way the Articles of Confederation were written. And so they realized that it wasn't working quite the way they wanted it to. They realized that some changes were going to need to be made. They saw what happened in Shays' Rebellion as well, and they were also alarmed by that. But they wanted to go ahead and just tweak things. They didn't want to scrap the whole thing. Now, again, these are the people who lost the debate. These are the anti-federalists. And the reason that they liked the Virginia plan, the New Jersey plan, and liked the Articles of Confederation the way they were, is because the rule was previously that in the Congress that was set up by the Articles of Confederation, that each state had one vote. One state, one vote. Right? And hopefully it's clear to you that if every state has one vote, that benefits the small states. Imagine if we have one state, one vote right now in our Congress. That would mean that California, New York, and Texas could all vote in favor of something. And there, altogether, you're talking like probably 40 to 50 million people. And Wyoming, if it was every state had one vote, and Wyoming, Idaho, and North Dakota could vote no, and they'd cancel us out. And there's like 125 people in those states altogether. So, small states really benefit. They have a lot more power because even though their populations are much smaller, if it's one state, one vote, the small states actually have more power. So, and if that's not clear, we'll talk about that in the review session, but according to the New Jersey plan, in the struggle over the allocation of benefits and privileges, who would the winners be? And who would the losers be? Right? So once again, on your lecture notes, go ahead and circle one of them. And then I'll tell you which was the correct answer, because this is not a matter of opinion. This is a matter of fact. Hopefully you figured this out. The winners would be the small states, and the losers would be the large states. Well, here's what you have, so think about this. The two plans that were presented at the Constitutional Convention, the New Jersey plan that benefited the small states, the Virginia plan that benefited the large states, and so there it was. That was the battle in the Constitutional Convention. What are they going to do? How are they going to come up to an agreement that will satisfy everybody, or at least not piss off everybody? And so the agreement that they came up with is oftentimes referred to as the Great Compromise. And the reason that it's called that, quite frankly, in my mind, is because it was a great compromise. It was a great compromise. And the system that they came up with and the compromise that they came up with is pretty much exactly what we have today. The compromise that they worked out is pretty much what the framers came up with way back in the day. Way back in the day. So I want to talk about the Great Compromise and why it was such a great compromise. And to do that, what I'm going to have to do is talk about each of the branches of government and how they were set up. Now, in most cases, the way that the branches were set up is exactly what we have today. That's the amazing thing about our Constitution. It was written, so long ago, and yet, for the most part, it's still intact, especially when it comes to the structure of government. Everything's basically the same way. These guys were just so smart. So, let's talk about the Great Compromise and what it actually was. First, there are a series of articles in the Constitution. Each article deals with a different topic, right? And the main thing that I'm going to want you guys to know are the first three articles. And this is really important. Article 1, the most important one, and I'm going to stress this by bringing my finger closer. Article 1, the legislative branch. Article 2, aren't you glad this isn't 3D? The executive branch. Article 3, the judicial branch. The reason that they were in that order was not by accident. It certainly wasn't in alphabetical order. The reason is for the framers, the legislative branch was supposed to be the most important branch of government. It was the place where most of the decisions were supposed to be made. Nowadays, our system is not quite like that. The president is kind of like the center of our system now. But it didn't used to be, that wasn't what the framers had in mind. And we'll talk about that some more. That wasn't what the framers had in mind. For the framers, the legislative branch, Congress, was supposed to be the main branch. That's where the big decisions were supposed to have been made. So I want to talk to you about the structure of the legislative branch. We have a bicameral legislature. We talked about that before, a bicameral legislature. We have a House of Representatives, the lower house, and looks like I'm fighting. We have the House of Representatives here, and we have the Senate here, a bicameral legislature, and then together they make Congress, okay? The House of Representatives, sometimes referred to as the lower house, is based on proportional representation. Now, by now, I'm assuming that you know what proportional representation is, but just in case, we should go over it one more time. Proportional representation means that the larger your population, the larger the population that a state has, the more representatives it gets, right? So again, in the House of Representatives, California, lovely California, has 53 representatives, and Wyoming has 1. One person represents all of Wyoming. They had to drive all over Wyoming to go ahead and represent Wyoming. Not the case in California. We have 53, maybe that's 53, depending on whether it's reversed or not, representatives in California. Okay? So proportional representation. And the method of selection, the way that we go ahead and... Thought I heard my neighbors coming. So far, so good. Still kind of early. It's, what is it, 7:53? My wife is going to be coming out here soon and wondering what the hell I'm doing. Okay? I haven't spoken with her about this yet. Oh, and there's a bee. Do you see me jump? I'm allergic to bees. Last time I got stung by a bee, 9/11. They had to call, the 911. They had to call the paramedics. They had to rush me to the hospital. I never knew that I was allergic to bees. Got stung, didn't think anything about it. Next thing I know, my whole head's itching. I jumped in the shower because I felt like all weird. Looked at myself, my face was all like, weird. I was like, oh my God. And so I got rushed to the hospital. So now when I see a bee, which happens in the garden, you're going to see me jump like a small child. Laugh all you want. I can't help it. Okay, so the method of selection for the House of Representatives is direct elections, just like we talked about before. We vote, this is us, citizens, here we are, and here's our representatives. We vote directly for the people who are going to be in the House of Representatives. That's a direct election. We vote, whoever we vote for, the person who gets the most votes wins. And in the House of Representatives, their term of office is 2 years. Every 2 years, every member of the House of Representatives is up for re-election. And then just in case you guys don't know, we'll talk about this later on, so you don't have to write it down just yet. We'll talk about this when we do Congress. But right now, there are 435 members of the House of Representatives. So each member serves a 2-year term. So if somebody gets elected in 2000, they're going to be up for re-election in 2002. In 2002, if they win again, they'll be up for re-election in 2004. If they win again, they'll be up for re-election in 2006, and that's the way it works. So when we have our elections in November in 2012, every member of the House of Representatives who hasn't resigned or retired or whatever is going to be up for re-election. And then in those places where there's nobody running, if somebody's resigned, then 2 new people will be running for it, and whoever wins there will be up for re-election again. That's the way it works. Everybody in the House of Representatives is up for re-election every 2 years. Now, the United States Senate is structured a little bit differently. In the Senate, they have non-proportional representation, meaning it's not based on population. Every state gets 2 senators. So Wyoming gets 2 senators. Even though there's only 8 people in Wyoming, they get 2 senators. In California, where there's 35 million people, they get 2 senators. We get 2 senators, right? And the method of selection, at least in the original version of the Constitution, was again indirect. So we used to vote for we'd vote for our state legislators, and our state legislators would select the senators, right? That's why we call it indirect. We vote for our state legislators. Our state legislators vote for our senators. That's an indirect election. So we didn't get to vote for our senators. Now that changed with the 17th Amendment. Now it's a direct election. We get to vote directly for our senators. So come 2012, I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure in 2012 one of our senators is up for re-election, but I honestly don't know. I'll look that up and I'll find out later on. The reason I don't know is because senators' terms of office are every 6 years. They have to run for re-election every 6 years. So if a senator is elected in 2000, they're up for re-election in 2006. And then if they want to run, if they run and they win, then they're up for re-election in 2012. That's the way it works, every 6 years. And then one last thing, because I don't want to make sure that this doesn't go much longer than 11 minutes. Any law, anything that's going to become law has to pass both the House of Representatives and the Senate. They have to pass in both bodies. And this winds up being significant because if you think about what we talked about last time, in the struggle over the allocation of benefits and privileges, who wins in the House of Representatives? Who's got the advantage in the House of Representatives? That's based on proportional representation. Take a chance, pause this, think about it. The large states win. The more populous states win because they have the most representatives. Again, we have 53. Wyoming has 1. In the Senate, though, the small states have the advantage. Wyoming can cancel us out. Idaho can cancel New York out. North Dakota can cancel out Texas, even though they hardly have any people there. And so the reason that we call it a great compromise, at least as part of it, is what the framers came up with was a rule where for any law to pass, it has to go through the House and through the Senate. And the House, the large states, have the benefit and the advantage. In the Senate, the small states have the advantage and the benefit. And so that way, they'd have to compromise. And then next, we're going to move on to Article 2, which is the executive branch.